As a biologist who studies animal behavior, I often travel to remote places to observe endangered animals in the wild. But today, I'm going somewhere much closer to home to see some animals who are often underappreciated. And I'm going to show you what they have to do with the neuroscience of love and with the way that the government is wasting your tax money. I promise, it'll all make sense by the end of the video. I'm here at the Luvin Arms Animal Sanctuary in Erie, Colorado to meet two very special individuals.
This is Davey, the mother to Lakshmi. This is Lakshmi, the daughter of Davey. We call her Mimi for short. Davey and Lakshmi we received from a donor who wasn't able to care for them properly. The donor received them by paying for them from a farm. And then Lakshmi was born at the donor's property right before they came to Luvin Arms. So when they first arrived, Davey was young for a mom. I believe she was around 1 year old. Lakshmi was just a couple months. They're both very small. Ideally, you wouldn't be having a cow get pregnant at that age, for one. It's just really harsh on their bodies. They're not quite prepared for it. But Davey did a really good job just stepping into the mother role faster than she was supposed to. Mimi was super bonded. Very bonded to Davey. She was incredibly timid with us, and I think that also kind of related to the care they had received before us. Both of them were slow to trust. Lakshmi would not leave Davey's side. It was just continuously, we'd go in and try to do treatment for them, and Lakshmi would be darting back and forth under Davey. Davey and Lakshmi's relationship is super unusual for the dairy industry, for sure. Very rare that a mother and baby are able to stay together and grow up together.
Contrary to what a lot of people think, dairy cows don't just automatically produce milk constantly. Like all mammals, they only lactate after giving birth, and then only for a limited amount of time. So dairy farmers artificially inseminate their cows every year and then take the calf away from the mother shortly after birth so there will be more milk available to sell. Male calves are effectively useless to the dairy industry, so they're sold for veal, which involves keeping them in a tiny pen designed to prevent them from playing and developing their muscles. Female calves will be raised to produce milk, which means that they'll go through that annual cycle of being artificially inseminated and having their baby taken away over and over again. And once a cow's milk production starts to decline, which typically happens at about a quarter of her natural lifespan, she'll be sent to slaughter as well. The separation of mothers and babies in the dairy industry is often considered especially cruel. But do cows and calves actually suffer when they're forcibly separated, or are we just projecting human emotions onto them? Questions about animals' internal mental states, what they think and feel, is one of my areas of specialty as a biologist. I got my PhD from the Department of Neurobiology and Behavior at Cornell University, and I have over 14 years of experience studying animal cognition and communication. Studying animal emotions is notoriously difficult, but one approach that we can take is to compare the brain activity and behavior of humans and non-human animals in a situation where we know how the humans are feeling. And it turns out that the neurobiology of mother-infant bonding is remarkably similar across mammals. Oxytocin is a hormone produced by the hypothalamus in the brain, and it's very important in mother-infant bonding in all the mammal species where it's been studied, including humans. Human mothers with higher levels of oxytocin in their blood spend more time gazing at their infants and feel a stronger bond to them on average. And similarly, when scientists gave cows a drug that prevented oxytocin from being released in their brain, it significantly reduced the amount of time that they spent licking their calves. So how exactly does oxytocin affect a mother's brain? There haven't been very many studies on this in cows, or on humans for that matter, but from studies of other animals like rats and sheep, we know that oxytocin is released by the hypothalamus and then binds to receptors in a part of the brain called the mesolimbic system. In the mesolimbic system, it causes neurons to release the neurotransmitter dopamine, which is responsible for creating the rewarding feeling that motivates us to engage in certain behaviors. And intuitively, it makes sense that dopamine would be involved in mother-infant bonding because we know that at least in humans, warm, fuzzy, rewarding feelings are an important component of maternal love. MRI studies of human mothers have shown that the hypothalamus and the mesolimbic system light up when mothers view photos of their baby or hear a recording of their baby's cry. So that suggests that this system of the hypothalamus releasing oxytocin and then the oxytocin binding to the mesolimbic system, which releases dopamine, is important for mother-infant bonding in both humans and non-human mammals. But oxytocin isn't the only hormone that behaves similarly between human and non-human mothers. For example, human mothers with a higher ratio of estrogen to progesterone after giving birth report feeling a greater degree of emotional attachment to their infants. And rat mothers with a higher ratio of estrogen to progesterone after birth are more attentive to their babies too. Scientists used to think that the main difference between humans and other animals in terms of maternal bonding is that in humans, it heavily involves the neocortex, which is the part of the brain that's responsible for higher order consciousness and rational thought. But more and more studies are showing that the neocortex is heavily implicated in maternal bonding in non-human mammals as well, which blurs this artificial line between humans and other animals. When given the opportunity to do so, cows form long-lasting bonds with their babies. One study found that even after giving birth to a new calf, cows retained a strong bond to their older calf and spent significantly more time with them than with other members of the herd. At Luvin Arms, Davey and Lakshmi still have a strong bond after more than 2 years.
Now, they're still very much bonded, still very much just two stuck together like glue. Both Mimi and Davey do enjoy hanging out more with the older male cows we have, but they're just mainly each other's partners, I'd say.
Humans and other mammals are also quite similar in how our brains respond to social distress. MRI studies of humans have shown that a brain region called the anterior cingulate cortex lights up when we experience feelings of social exclusion and when we experience physical pain, which explains why being separated from those we love is quite literally painful for us. And experiments on rodents and monkeys have shown that the exact same brain region is responsible for social distress and physical pain in non-human mammals as well. When cows and calves are separated on dairy farms, there is every reason to believe that they suffer emotionally. The cows and calves call loudly to one another, often for days on end, and repeatedly try to reunite with each other. They also show other, less obvious signs of distress. For example, when cows are separated from their babies, they shake their heads and tails more than usual, which is also something that cows do when they're in physical pain.
When Lakshmi first came, it was December, so it was very cold. Into January, I remember she got a bit of frostbite on her ears. So we were treating that. We wanted to clean it with some solution as well as put some SSD, which is like a lotion on there. And so we would have to separate her from Davey to do so. And when we had Lakshmi inside, Davey just would start to pace back and forth outside, was mooing a lot, getting really frantic until we would finally open up Lakshmi after the treatment. And they would both tend to run off together into the other side of the pen and want nothing to do with us.
Most people would agree that we shouldn't cause animals to suffer unnecessarily. But the separation of mothers and babies in the dairy industry is often thought of as a necessary evil because it would be hard for dairy farms to meet demand and turn a profit without it. The thing is, though, why do we assume that the dairy industry is necessary at all? It's true that milk has nutrients like protein, calcium, and vitamin D, but there are lots of other foods that are good sources of those nutrients too. For example, according to the School of Public Health at Harvard University, a cup of cow's milk has about 300 milligrams of calcium, of which your body is able to absorb about 30%. Bok choy has about 160 milligrams of calcium, but your body is able to absorb 50% of that, so you effectively get almost as much calcium from a cup of bok choy as you do from a cup of cow's milk. Non-dairy alternatives like soy milk, almond milk, and oat milk are often fortified with calcium and vitamin D too, and nowadays, these alternatives are readily available at grocery stores and cafes. So how can we say that we need dairy? Dairy is also far less sustainable than plant-based alternatives. A comprehensive study published in the highly respected journal Science in 2018 found that dairy milk uses more land, produces more greenhouse gas emissions, uses more fresh water, and contributes more to water pollution than soy milk, almond milk, oat milk, or rice milk. The worst thing about this is that the dairy industry is artificially propped up by our tax money. The government often pays farmers to produce a surplus of milk that literally gets thrown out because there's no market for it. And in 2018, 73% of dairy industry profits in the US came from government handouts. By contrast, only about 4% of US agricultural subsidies go to fruit and vegetable farmers. The government itself acknowledges in their own nutritional guidelines that we should be eating more plant-based food, and yet they use our tax money to artificially lower the price of animal products below what they should cost in a free market, while giving almost no assistance to the farmers who are growing the kind of food that the government itself admits is healthier for us. It's time to let the dairy industry die and embrace a more compassionate and environmentally and economically sensible future. Instead of paying farmers to rip cows' babies away from them and produce an overabundance of milk that they can't even sell, how about we give them subsidies to grow fruits, vegetables, and legumes instead? On a personal level, the most important thing that you can do to help is to cut dairy out of your diet. I know cheese tastes good, but would you rather give up dairy, or would you rather be the reason why a mother like Davey will never get to see her baby again? The choice is yours.